It's a little unnerving now. Um, Thinking back to everything that I used to think. Hi, my name is Brandon. I'm 22 years old, and I'm from West Covina, California. I met Cicely in high school. Sophomore year, I joined the cross country team to more or less hang out with some friends, and she happened to be on the team. When I came up to Humboldt, I started my freshman year at HSU in August of 2014. She was already here for 1 year. She's one class grade above me. I moved straight into an apartment with her off campus. When I first moved in with her, the relationship was still really good. We were both very excited to be together, to be away from home, to be in college. Things were really good at the beginning, and that positive relationship continued for about 10 months. In the late spring semester of my sophomore year, there was a guy that she started spending a lot of time with. He was making some very flirtatious comments on her posts on social media, and when I would voice my concerns about him flirting with her, she would always blow it off as, "No, he's not flirting with me. Don't worry about it." At the end of this semester, probably in May of 2015, Cecily went to a climbing competition in San Diego. This other guy was going with them. He was a photographer for the climbing club, and she stayed with him while they were down there on vacation, and they shared a bed. She told me that they didn't do anything. Of course, later when she started coming home with like hickeys after spending time with him, I don't necessarily believe that. And that eventually led to the friend group kind of breaking up, as I continued to live with Cecily even after we broke up later that year. People just didn't really want to spend time with her, and as long as she was at the house, people didn't want to come to the house. So as I started spending less time with other people, and I found myself alone more often, or awake late at night, the thoughts that I was having, being worthless or not good enough for her, just kind of festered. When I'm alone with my thoughts, I've often considered that it makes me crazy because just of how oddly and maliciously my thoughts can progress sometimes. I don't remember the first time that I had suicidal thoughts. I think it stems from my own insecurities, and then a situation where it's in my face that you are not valued, you are not cared for, you are not important, at least my perspective of it. And so eventually it just became, maybe it'd be better to go away. I'd come out here in the middle of the night. I don't think I was ever out here before 11 p.m. And I was never out here when the sun rose. I never saw anyone once I entered the rural part of town. It was pretty much pitch black and there was no one. So I would exit through this hole in the fence here, and I'd walk along the pipe, and I'd go about halfway down towards the middle of the river. And I'd come out to these little edges, and then I'd step down onto the platform. I stayed there for a varied amount of time. I don't think I was ever outside of the fence for maybe more than 45 minutes. It was mostly just self-reflection. I guess the purpose of it was that if I decided that I did want to jump, then I'd be able to just kind of fall over and not have to put much thought into it afterwards. I don't know why I never actually did it. Something just said it's time to go back, and so I'd get up and leave. On October 10th, shortly after midnight, I was driving home from a bonfire that I was having with some friends. My ex-girlfriend Cecily was in the car at the time. And as we came up to a corner, we saw a red glow of fire not too far down the street. And as we pulled up to it, we noticed that there was a car that had run into a building and caught the bushes and the building itself on fire. I pulled over immediately across the street, but Cecily was a bit too uncomfortable being that close, so I had to move the car. We were the first ones on scene, but by the time I got back after moving the car, there was 1 or 2 other people who had come out of their homes. Together with those people, we determined that the driver was still in the vehicle, so I ran back to the car to get my emergency vehicle knife. It has a window breaker and a seatbelt cutter on it. When I got back to the others, one of the other gentlemen used my knife to break open the passenger side window. A bunch of smoke came out, so we all had to take a step back. We still couldn't see the driver, but a crowd was starting to form. The first police officer arrived, and he immediately went to the passenger side window and started calling for the driver to climb out of the car. At this point, I noticed that one of the nearby fences was open, so I went around through the gate, and I had a clear visual of the driver, Cedric. He was conscious and awake, but he wasn't reacting. He was very calm. I called out to him and told him he needed to get out of the car. He tried to open the door, but it didn't open, and he kind of looked at me and tapped on the door, kind of like expecting me to open the door for him, and I told him, no, you're gonna have to climb out. He tried to pick himself up to climb out of the window, but he stopped immediately, and it was at that point that I realized he wasn't gonna be able to get out on his own. I approached the driver's side window. It was open, and I began to pull him out, make sure his seatbelt was off. I heard the officer call from the other side for him to climb to the passenger side window again. And so I screamed back to the officer that he can't get over. So I started to pull Cedric out of the vehicle, and as his legs came out of the window and his body weight dropped, I stepped on a piece of debris and lost my balance, and both of us fell. And immediately after, the police officer was helping me up, and then we carried Cedric away from the fire together.
The City Council of the City of Arcata hereby wishes to recognize your heroic actions.
Thank you very much to Brandon for being there. It's a very heroic thing you did.
I mean, what words do you use for somebody who saved your life?
I asked Brandon, you know, all of this going on, what possessed you to go jump in harm's way? Brandon said, because I was there.
It's really humbling. It's hard to feel worthless when you know that you just saved somebody's life to continue to be a father. You just saved someone's life to continue to work and contribute to their families and the people around them. If I was to talk to someone else that was struggling with suicide, I'd probably tell them something similar. You never know when you're going to be needed. I was on the edge of suicide, and on the same day that I was thinking about it, I managed to save somebody's life. So for other people, my advice would, of course, be don't do it, because you may find yourself to be really important in someone else's life later, and that's only an opportunity that you get if you stick around.